Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. As you can see, we got the camera fixed. We are back with our little red illumination and clear picture. Shout out to Boston's photographer, Obi, who made sure I got the camera reset and we are here. If you notice, I have a different hat on today. I mean, I am intentional about that because we are today in partnership with our partner for over a year now, Action for Boston Community Development, otherwise known here in the city of Boston, mainly for summer jobs and LIHEAP fuel assistance, but they do so much more. And our partnership specifically is with the Department of Health Services. And so as it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we understand that a more popular and accepted term, because words are important, we are talking about intimate partner violence today. And specifically, we are highlighting, and the truth of the matter is I have personal experience with this with family members and friends. And if you pay attention, some of the behavior and things and risk behavior can start in middle and high school. Certain controlling behaviors, monitoring of social media. We've talked about that a lot. I will also say things expressed today by myself are not the opinions of ABCD. I will do my best to refrain from commentary, but this is a conversation that is needed. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence displays itself in many different ways, and it is one of those taboo subjects within our community, with the consideration of so many people that are dealing with it in private. And so with that in mind, we are going to share resources at the end of today's conversation. And so I am getting ready to introduce my guest. One is not a stranger, so I'm going to bring our first time guest in, and it's Yumey. Yumey, not what I was going to say earlier. So May, we'll just stick with that to make sure I don't mess up. Welcome to the Java Cafe this morning. And also Priscilla, who has been with us before as well. And I am noticing red hair is there as well. So, shout out for that. But welcome to the Java Cafe to both of you. Glad to have both of you here. And May, I'll start with you. If you can introduce yourself, and if you could describe the state of, hold on for 1 second, the state of intimate partner violence right now as it pertains to your work. All right, we have a tech issue in the background, so I'm going to ask Priscilla if she would be able to do that for me. And just, Priscilla, reintroduce yourself to the audience, and if you could as well give us a word just about the state of things, and if you want to say it in the context of middle school and or high school students, you're welcome to do that as well. And folks in the background, please go in and share today's episode, because it is very, very important that we have this conversation, because with so many things going on in the world, we'll talk about it. This is an issue. And so we're going to work in the background to try to get May back. But Priscilla, please, no pun intended, May back. All right, May. I wonder if if you ever heard that. But we're going to try to get her back. But Priscilla, please reintroduce yourself and give us some context to why we're here today.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for having us on today. My name is Priscilla Portugal Moreno. I am the ABCD Health Services Community Prevention Program Manager. So when it comes to domestic violence, intimate partner violence, in regards to young people, it's definitely something that is a lot more prevalent when it comes to middle schoolers and high schoolers. I think a lot of it has to do with social media, the impact of social media, as well as COVID, when it comes to understanding social interactions, as well as what young people are seeing in the media. When it comes to artists that they listen to, things that they see on TV, or their shows, even games that they're exposed to. A lot of times when people talk about social media, they think about, Instagram or TikTok, but there's also folks that are online. There are different games that folks play, communities that they're part of, that has an impact on their relationships.
Still, we're going to see if we got May back. May, are you able to hear us? I think so. I think we have May back. So, May, we got you.
Hi. Yes, hi, good morning.
Can I just name, and I told you all before we went live yesterday, I had some tech issues. Can I just say, health and mental health, it's all part of it. I'm proud of me because I did not freak out in the background. I just do it to Priscilla. And, but May, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you sort of got into this space of working with Maureen and Priscilla and Jamie and others there at ABCD. You have to tell us if you were a Summer Works kid. Because that's just, that is just the thing. But
Yes.
I'm glad to have you back. We got it worked out. And go ahead.
Yeah, so my full name is Yumey Espinoza, but everyone calls me May. I am the Senior Manager of Youth Engagement and Prevention here at Casa Myrna. I've been here for 10 years now, so a long time, but I've moved around a little bit, but mostly working in the education prevention side with young people, which is really what I enjoy to do. So the reason why I partnered with Priscilla is because we talk about domestic violence in 5 different buckets. So we do emotional, digital, physical, sexual, and financial. And I
Wait a minute. Hold on. Because you went right to the work.
What did you want me to say?
Tell us a little bit about you.
Me.
Just yes, and where you're comfortable sharing, because I know a lot of people in spaces like this and different types of healthcare with where you're comfortable if you have an experience. It's important to me for when folks are in the cafe for the first time, the audience to identify with them and hear them a little bit of their story, and then they how we can be sometimes. We got to know you to take the information, and so please just tell us a little bit about your journey, and then we'll jump right into the work. But that does say something about you because you went right in.
Yeah, so I don't like to talk about myself, so that's number one. I guess I'll start with that. But the reason, big picture, why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I always grew up thinking like I just want to be the person that I wish I had when I was younger. So I grew up in Boston. I came here from Bolivia when I was 7. Grew up around Heath Street, and very much just seeing the difference of time out again. What I do?
Old side and new side.
What do you mean old side?
Old side. Oh, Jesus. We got a generational difference. Never mind. I grew up on 106 Heath Street. And so when you said Heath Street, I just had to, chime
Near
in.
Jackson. Yeah, near Jackson.
Okay, go ahead. May, I'm not going to interrupt you anymore. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's your show. I'm just here. But, so yeah, just seeing how people who were Latin were treated, like everyone around me was Latin brown. Honestly, learning English was just like a whole nother feat. Like I went to, ESL at the Blackstone. And so I guess like understanding whiteness was like a new thing for me because growing up in Bolivia, everyone was my people. And so coming here and being like, oh no, you're a minority, like you're them, was very weird for me. And trying to like understand that as like a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old person. But living in a community that was so predominantly Black, brown, like everyone spoke Spanish around me. And so I just didn't understand why people were hating on my culture. And then while I was growing up, seeing that my friends, specifically the boys, were treated as, and at that time, the term super predator was like a thing. And I was like, these are 17-year-old boys who are just sad and angry, and they just like are just trying to make ends meet, and people are just seeing them as like these monsters. And I was like, I just don't understand why. And so as an immigrant, my mom told me like, you're going to college, like there's no other option. And so I ended up going to Wheelock College for juvenile justice and youth advocacy, and double majored in social work. And so I was like, I'm just trying to understand where I'm living, what I'm doing. Like sociology was always like a really big interest of me. And so that's kind of how I got into the work of just social work and youth work, because I just was trying to understand like why literally just why. Trying to understand the judicial system, because I was just like, this does make no sense to me. Like, why are we locking up these children? And mind you, like, they're my age. I'm like, why are we locking people up because they just want to have food to eat? Like, that's really just not making sense to me. So went to college because my mom told me that was not an option. Got my little degree, and I started at Casa Myrna actually because my grandma's name is Myrna. And so that's how I applied to it. And I started at their emergency residential unit because my goal at the time as like 20-year-old May was to work at a DYS facility, like a residential DYS facility. So I was like, oh, I'm already at residential. Let me, kind of transition over to DYS. And so I got, I don't know, good at my job, I guess, because they didn't let me leave. So 10 years later, every time I'm like, all right, I think I'm like ready to head out. They're like, no, let's just do another project. Let's try something else. And so I was very fortunate to say that Casa Myrna has given me the opportunity to be creative with the program that I was able to build. And like I said, I always have, like, my North Star is like building a program, being the person that I wish I had when I was that age to kind of guide me through like life. I didn't have an adult necessarily that told me like, this is what college means. This is how to apply. This is my financial aid. This is why you maybe should do a couple semesters in Bunker Hill and not have $100,000 in debt. But, here we are. And so that's kind of my why of how I came here and stayed here for so long and love it being here.
I am glad that you shared that. Hold on, let me just get Priscilla all set here. I am glad that you shared that with us, and I would like the Java Cafe to welcome May into the Java Cafe, and as part of the ABCD Health Services Network. It's wonderful to know that they have these type of partners that are really rooted and grounded in the work. So thank you for sharing your why. And let's jump right into the information. And so, Priscilla, if you could sort of level set for us, again, where we are, we're going to focus a lot on, middle school and teens to some extent, but this can be applicable to old heads like myself. I mean, it is sort of one of those, in some cases, I think a lot more women, and let's just name men, are speaking out about it. But there's still a level of taboo. Some people that may feel ashamed, threatened, and unsafe to seek help and even talk about it. And so I want to level set there, and please add from your profession, just kind of where we are with intimate partner violence.
Mhm. So before you get into that, I do want to just talk about the difference between domestic violence and intimate partner violence.
Yes, please do.
They are sometimes used interchangeably, but there is a difference. So when it comes to domestic violence, okay, the word domestic has to do with the home. Okay, and that's usually when folks think about it, violence that happens between folks that live together. However, when it comes to this type of violence, it's not just folks that live together. It's people that were just in a relationship, folks that were just talking, in that talking stage, any exes, even folks that you weren't in a relationship with. Okay, so when it comes to using domestic violence and intimate partner violence, we're trying to move towards intimate partner violence because it can happen to anyone, regardless of what they look like, their age, their religion, who they date. So that's the first thing. Now, with what I do, I run programs around the city of Boston where we talk about healthy relationships and what that looks like. And I actually have worked at some DYS sites with boys units. And I can say specifically to boys, this is a big problem because let's think about society, right? What are the norms for people who are boys, right? What are those societal norms, those gender norms? When it comes to talking about healthy relationships and consent, right? Because that's part of a healthy relationship. A lot of what their ideas are skewed a bit, and again, this has to do with the media, with, who they learn from their family, folks that they look up to, their friends, right? Especially for younger men, or younger people in general, they're impressionable, right? They're going through puberty. They want to try riskier things. They're not sure what's right or wrong. And sometimes they don't have a trusted adult to go to and confide in and be like, hey, this is happening, right? Because also too, when it comes to violence within partners, it's not just a woman to a man, right? Excuse me, it's not just a man to a woman. It also includes, right, women to men. And a lot of times people try not to think about that as domestic violence, or men who experience that, try to brush it off, right? But in reality, it is something that's happening, especially to men and young boys. They're definitely affected by it, and I feel like sometimes it is a silent battle, in a way.
It definitely is, and I'm going to bring May back in a second, but I just wanted to agree with you and know, and I we named it before we went live that it is a perspective that is not often talked about because there is some level of shame that comes with that. And so May, I'm going to ask you if you could specifically talk about one of the other areas, which are risk factors. Priscilla sort of talked about it. We've named that there's some, and if you don't mind the example, just to give folks an example, we hear the term red flags a lot, but there are often sometimes in situations in life, and especially like this, there may be some yellow flags. And so when we say risk factors, that's the terminology we use, but let's talk about some yellow flags before we get to a point of red flags. And I want to also name that I want to do my best to be intentional that in my language that there is no pointing to any responsibility on those who are the victims of this, and to name also on the men and women's side, you know what I mean, of being victims. And so I'm going to be very intentional because words do matter. And so May, what are some of those risk factors, aka yellow flags?
Yeah, so some of the risk factors that we see when it comes to intimate partner violence is having a history of childhood abuse, or having a history of your family having some form of domestic violence. So a lot of times we replicate what we see, right? So if this is our norm, and this is why we talk so much about media, is we are going to replicate our norm. If this is how we have seen love be portrayed our whole life, and it has been yelling and hitting and throwing things and all of this very toxic thing, this is just our norm. Like, there's no malice behind it. We're just replicating, our history. Some other things that we see when it comes to risk factors are just mental health problems. Sometimes, in our community, those don't get diagnosed or acknowledged. And so when those don't get treated, they come up in different ways. I would say, like, financial burdens, stress makes everything worse. So if you don't have, the money to make ends meet, I think everything just becomes more heightened. And I think a lot of people's stress response goes into anger. So those are some of the risk factors.
I'm interrupting here with the fact that I have been naming, May, that I'm very concerned, and
I can't hear you now.
I'm going to bring we've joked about it before with Maureen, but it's them wonderful sometimes. ABCD has such wonderful protection on their computers. Go back out and come in, and we'll figure it out. Priscilla, I'm going to ask you to sort of talk about what May was talking about, the financial impact. I've been naming that things that are going on in society, the financial burden, the holidays are coming. I've been naming social norms typically refer to men being providers, whether in the home or not, the Thanksgiving dinner, the gifts. I'll ask, are you aware that reporting goes up maybe during what the holiday? Just when May was naming that, and we got May back, just as you were naming that, May, I was asking Priscilla, like, I was saying to her that I've been naming that I'm very concerned about a lot leading into the holidays, the financial burden, keeping up with the Joneses, as they say, about gifts and the food. Both of you can contribute there, but May, we're going to keep you a while. May we have you and nothing acts up. But the financial burden of what you said just really made me think. For weeks I've been naming this, so thank you for affirming. If you go a little bit deeper there with that and the other risk factors. Priscilla, thank you for jumping in.
For sure. So, like you said, a lot of comparing and contrasting, like, oh, I want the new iPhone, I want this designer stuff. Like, even now, seeing young kids wear designer stuff to me is wild because I have a full-time job and I can't afford it. So I don't know how they are affording it, but the expectation is that they're wearing purple and they're wearing essential and they're wearing like all these things. So that does really create a burden for families. And we have seen a continuous tick up in cases during the holidays. I would say specifically Christmas and New Year's. Holidays when there's liquor involved, to be honest, a lot of alcohol and drug use does lead to some form of domestic violence, unfortunately. So that's definitely a big risk factor, a time where we see an increase of services being needed, as well as the summer months. I believe the stat is that there is a 12% increase in intimate partner violence during the summer months.
That is so. I'm going to bring Priscilla back. That is, I just was, that really resonated with me as you were talking about the financial impact. Priscilla, it was mentioned a little bit, but if we can talk a little bit, because I don't believe on those who are victims of it, and then those who help me, those who are doing the violence or the assaulting, whatever the proper term, not whatever, but I want to say the proper term. I don't believe they go into it with that intent. And what I mean by that is, from your experience in work, what are some of the signs, maybe continuing and risk factors, that you go from healthy to unhealthy relationships?
Yeah. So when it comes to relationships, right, it exists on a spectrum. So there are relationships that are healthy, that are unhealthy, and then can become abusive, right? Because it's on a spectrum, it can move. So there are relationships that can start off as healthy, and it can be unhealthy. It can turn into something unhealthy. Right. But if you communicate, right, you reestablish your boundaries, you make sure that you can talk about consent, what you're comfortable doing when it comes to going out, spending money, or even sexual choices. You have those conversations, it can go back to being healthy. But when it comes to abusive relationships, right, usually that's at a point of no control, where one person is isolating and manipulating the other person, and it's hard to get out of those relationships because of that isolation. With family, with friends, it's hard to seek support, especially too, depending on how this is happening, right? Because violence can also be monetary. Okay, let's say like they wouldn't be able to support themselves outside of this relationship. So when it comes to what would make a relationship unhealthy or abusive, right, on top of manipulation and isolation, this would also be not being able to communicate, right? Not being honest, not spending time with other people, right? Lots of times when it comes to relationships, especially for younger people, they are thinking like, oh my goodness, like I really like this person, I want to spend all my time with them. But I like to remind them during my sessions that it's important to invest in yourself, right? You are the most important person in your life. And although this relationship is really exciting and great, right, you have to continue to invest in yourself and others, because there's in your other relationships. Because this person, right, they're great. You have a lot of things that you align with, but at the same time, the differences also help the relationship grow and be healthy.
I wanted to, you talk about, our young people, and I wanted to ask May, from your experience, I've talked about the fact that I used to be a youth worker. I'm always going to be a youth worker at heart. And there's even behavior that I see now sometimes at bus stops. And if you live in a certain neighborhood and young people getting off the bus, you seeing no routines, post COVID, things like that. We were kind of, just in certain, what do you call it, schedules. And so you would start to notice just certain behaviors of you know always being, you know, close, and just that isolation. And you get this, sometimes you just have that feeling. With young people, where are we? Because it can start, and my point there was it can start in middle school. It can start at any point. And to Priscilla's point, from a healthy to unhealthy relationship. But what are you seeing right now in the status post COVID? We talk about social norms; they've changed. The isolation, and then, some of our young people now did not have, I can't remember the exact term, but socialization has
Mhm.
changed online. And so I put a lot out there, May. Sorry. Welcome to the Java Cafe.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that's a very valid point, that COVID really changed how people communicate and build community. Even like my sibling is a gamer, and like I think most of their lives is very much on the game, is online. And I'm like, oh, like some of like their best friends is like people that live other states, never met. And I'm like, this is different because I'm very used to being in people's faces all the time. And I think that a big part of even the summer healthy relationship academy that we have, that we had to start incorporating, is life skills, in the sense of just having conversation and and building community. I always say that having community does take a little bit of inconvenience, and that is just the price that you have to pay to have a village, to make friends, to have your people be there. It's not always going to be a good time or people showing up for you. You have to show up for people. And I think that that's some of the things that young people are missing, of making those connections. And so even like the first day, normally the young people are real quiet unless they like have known each other. So we have to incorporate a lot of icebreakers in the beginning to get them to find points of connection and start building on that, because they just don't normally go up to people and just start talking and building those connections. So I definitely see that the isolation is more easily kind of gotten, because everyone is just so used to having a whole world in their phone. And I hate to sound old, but it really be the phone that's the problem sometimes.
Well, we are experienced, and we have life experience that has contributed to, the difference of our, and I'm presumably there's a huge, couple of decades probably difference between, me and you. It's not old, it's experience, and it's concern, because we have this intuitiveness, I think, that I was referring to earlier, when you see young people on their routine or whatever. And so I want to also talk about, one of the things, Priscilla, that I wanted to tap in with you about is, it's if there is this unhealthy relationship that develops. I will name that oftentimes from the outside looking in, and either one of you can speak to this, and how maybe family members can be supportive, because I've said to people and individuals, leave. As I've matured and learned, do what you need to do to stay safe.
Mhm.
If there are children involved, it's very different, you know. And so, Priscilla, can you talk a little bit about going back to being healthy? That can include both working on it, therapy, individual, family if need be, and then, couples therapy. And in some cases, healthy may require an exit when it is safe. And so, how do we get back? And we're going to get ready to start sharing some resources. I just wanted to name, I looked at the comments, and I did not do this earlier, in not being cognizant that for some, that this may be triggering. And what I mean by that is, some people hearing about this, it's a reminder. And so I have to name Miss Teresa, who is in, and she says, as a family devastated by intimate partner violence, making sure our young women and men know and understand what boundaries are. More importantly, there needs to be programs to help people identify and identify and presumably deal with anger issues appropriately and cope with it. And so that kind of goes, to May's point about life skills. We don't hear that term as much as we used to. And so, Priscilla, thank you for your patience there. But Miss Teresa, we love you. And I just wanted to, if at any point you or anybody listening needs to close and put an X on that screen and step away, please do. Because we always give space when we talk about topics like this, that it may be overbearing for some and triggering, and we always want you to take care of yourself. And so, Priscilla, what are some of the things about getting back to healthy relationships? And either one of you can kind of throw in some there about some advice to some of us on the outside looking in and aren't living it and don't know what people are dealing.
Jimmy, just real quick, I just want to confirm the question. Just like when it comes to healthy relationships, how to bring them back, like things to consider to make sure that your relationship is healthy, and like where to seek support, like a little bit.
Yes, and in my mind, I didn't clearly communicate that. In thinking about that, when we talk about support, I thought about those that are around and want to be supportive, but often are good intended, but don't know how to support in a manner. If I see May, you're shaking your head, and Priscilla, I'm trying to do better. That we can point fingers and we can say, do this, do that, and trying to be supportive, but it may not be the best advice. And then sometimes I'll say I statements. I have been a little judgy. Well, it happened again. And, if they did it once, it's going to happen again. So why don't you leave to not be the second and the third? So that's some of the context as we get ready to get into support. And so I'm sorry. It's just, I'm aware of some of the dynamics here. And so I'm trying to do better. And maybe I'm slightly, triggered myself. And so that please forgive me. And yes, I know you got it.
Thank you, Jimmy. So the first part of that question, to Teresa's point, I just want to echo, thank you for being vulnerable in this space and sharing that, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that also have experienced it that are here today. But something that's really important is to learn about communication, right? A lot of folks, to May's point, what they grew up, what their social norm was, what their norm was in their family was aggressive communication. So understanding these different forms, aggressive versus passive aggressive, so you can identify, because folks use these forms of communication because they don't know how to communicate their wants and needs, right? So learning how to be assertive, right? Taking that moment, to calm down. Sometimes folks aren't ready to have a conversation right away, right, about something that happened. So understanding boundaries, right, and communicating that, as well as consent. Okay, folks don't realize they ask for consent every day, right? And it's no difference when it comes to what you do with your partner or with your family. Now, when it comes to what you were talking about with how to support people who are experiencing intimate partner violence, and May can speak more on this, I can say that it's hard to get out of these relationships, again, because of that isolation, because of that manipulation. Lots of times there are factors that they might not share. Maybe they share a child. Like I said before, maybe there is this financial dependency, right? There's a codependency that is created by the perpetrator that can be hard to get out of, and lots of times folks try to be supportive, right? And they're like, you should do this. Why haven't you left yet? It's happening again. Right. But there's that cycle that can be really hard to get out of, because, again, of everything that the perpetrator has done to isolate the person, to make sure that they don't want to get, well, not that they don't, but they don't feel comfortable seeking the support. They're scared because of what can happen if the person finds out.
Yes. I go ahead, May. I'm sorry.
So I'll also jump in and share resources now, saying that SafeLink is Massachusetts domestic violence hotline, and it's housed in Casa, Myrna, and you can also call them and say, hey, my friend is experiencing this. I don't know how to support them. So it's not just for somebody who is experiencing domestic violence themselves, but if somebody wants to support somebody who is going through DV, that is also a hotline resource to call. So that's number one. And Jimmy, you kind of touched on this a little bit with the intro to the question, but I think that trying not to be judgmental, and I know that it's hard, is really key. I think that once you hear for the 10,000th time, like, oh, my partner cheated on me, but I'm going back because of all of this, you're like, all right, stand up, like, like, why? But also like wanting to say that we have a whole lesson on why people stay, and at the root of it is love. And if we're being realistic, love is not rational. Rationally, you will leave somebody that's hurting you. But when you're in love, you're in love. You're in love with the person that you fell in love with at the beginning. And so that person not showing up for you during the abusive moments of your relationship is not registering your brain, right? So that's why it really does take people about 7 times from leaving the relationship to really leave. So you have to be patient with those people in your life that you love that are maybe going through this abuse. And also, and I know that this is hard, being understanding and being there for them, because kind of to Priscilla's point, it's really easy to be isolated in a DV situation because you might be embarrassed to say, like, yeah, I'm going back to this situation for the 10th time. And it's a little embarrassing, and you might just isolate even yourself with not wanting to share with your friends. And if you are a friend that wants to support that person, check in on them. Even if you're not getting a response, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Hey, I haven't seen you. Hey, I haven't FaceTimed you. Especially if somebody that has experienced physical abuse, like putting eyes on them is key. So like, do you have bruises? Show me your face. Let me see you're okay and you're alive. If you're choosing to go back and be with this person and be in the situation, kind of like you said before, we do a lot of safety planning of staying in abusive relationships that you may just not be ready to leave yet. And so that is just a way that it is really hard to be supportive in that way, but that is a really big support when people are really ready to leave. Because let's say you are like 5 years in, 3 kids, and you have nobody because all your friends are like, I'm sick and tired of you talking about this person. And so it's like, who do you turn to? So that's why, like, it may be hard, but it's needed.
We have to be able, and I'll just put myself on screen here. We have to be able to put our pride and our judgment aside when 2 years, 3 years,
Mhm.
we're aware of things going on. And now, had you not, and had you listened, that
Mhm.
has to do with us, and that's pride. And it's a healthy pride where we wanted to help, but it flips when how dare we when they're reaching out into are to a point of help. And so I just wanted to name that for us, that want to be supportive and just level set, that we do it in a manner that is first of all safe, and secondarily, we're not in the situation and don't understand and know all the dynamics, good intended. But
Mhm.
a couple of other things I just wanted to mention. There are some resources. I mean, I am getting ready to share, and we talked about how to support. We talked about, healthy, unhealthy, and then abusive. And and it's so funny because in the middle of the diagram I'm looking at, unhealthy is yellow, and then it gets to abusive, and it has this red, hue to it. So that's just a affirmation of the point. And so it is, and I have a brother in the room, that is talking, and pride prevents, performance, and in that context, generally, but you know, performance to help the folks in that context that want the help. We got to put our pride down and then be able to perform and execute for them when they need the help. I just wanted to make sure that folks understood that in both on both the James Hills page, where some people are watching, on YouTube and also on the Java with Jimmy page. We shared one of the major resources, and I'm going to start putting other resources in, and you all can start to talk about them in the link that are hyperlinked and directly to. I clicked one earlier on the phone just as I was getting ready. And one of the things that I noticed about, I believe SafeLink is what it's called, is there's this tab that for you to exit immediately. Some of these sites I've seen in the past have a button that will literally clear the history of a visit to that site, because going back, and if we could spend about 2 minutes here to reiterate, because this is something I've been talking about, social media and the impact, especially for our young people, that, sometimes there is monitoring of social media. And I want to say, and this is just a thought in real time, that when we talk about sometimes there's unhealthy behavior, by my experience in a, heterosexual relationship, the young woman tends to be, give me your, and again, I'm being a little petty, but also real here. And y'all are smiling, say, look, y'all know where I'm going. Give me your password. Let me see your phone. Who are you texting? Those of them almost, in some cases, can be yellow flags to microaggressions that lead to unhealthy behavior. So as we get ready to wrap up, if you can give us a little bit specifically on the social media, just as what are those yellow and red flags, and then I'm going to start putting the resources in the comments.
Yeah, so I can start with social media or just any yellow or red flags. I always say I can't tell nobody how to have a healthy relationship. I can teach you guys about boundaries. I can teach people about respect. I can teach people about power and control. But at the end of the day, whatever my boundaries are in a relationship are different than Priscilla's. I'm different than Jimmy. You know what I'm saying? So like, and we always talk about this when we're in the Red Flags and Roses podcast. I'm always like, my man has to share his location, like for safety. And then, somebody else is like, that's toxic. I'm like, but if we're both saying this is like, okay, is it toxic if we're both agreeing to it? No. If we're both having full consent and we both are like, this is good, great. If I'm like, oh, here's my password, I don't care, is that toxic if we're both like, okay? But there is a difference of like, you have to give me your password because I don't trust you because of XYZ. And to the social media point, like, where are people learning this behavior from? Like, what is it? Love and Hip Hop? That's what, like, yeah, young people are watching now. So all of this like toxic behavior, I don't want to say all of it, but a lot of it is learned. And so what we do in our summer program is really challenge social norms. Like, okay, but why do you feel like you have to go through their phone? You don't feel secure in your relationship. Why is that? Is there a pattern of cheating, or are you just like putting on your ex's like trauma onto this person? And so we have all of these conversations to hopefully have a healthier relationship. But at the end of the day, whatever healthy looks like to me may be looking very different to you. I think is a more clear boundary with abuse. Some of those things are like, no, of course, like hitting, all of that is very abusive. And so we're not even going to like debate that. When there's a power and control dynamic, that is abusive and that's not okay. But when we talk about boundaries and healthy relationships or unhealthy, that does look very different for different people. That's why like we're not in the business of giving advice. We are just in the business of kind of opening up people's minds and having everybody give their own take on their own boundaries and their own relationships.
Priscilla.
Excuse me for the background noise. When it's specific to online, right? I feel like, to May's point, like this is especially prevalent, and I feel like with young people, this is a way to kind of silence that, to silence this struggle, right? So like online stalking can include sharing locations, but like a lot of young people have different forms of social media. So that's like checking followers, right? Checking their likes. Learning their passcode, right? Really just checking their tweets, who they're with, right? If everyone consents to sharing their location, right? Again, to May's point, like that's great. But when it comes to relationships, there's that spectrum. So it can start off as we agreed. But now one person can just be checking it more often and saying, they're like, why are you here? Who are you with? Right. So it's understanding the consent and the boundaries. Another part too, just like when it comes to how they're seeing this in the media, right? We can think about also different celebrities. Okay, this can be like Rihanna and Chris Brown, right? This can include Krishan Rock and Blueface, right? And these are things that young people see and they're like, oh, this is funny, like, oh, like they deserved it, right? And again, it's because of the lack of education, the lack of not understanding how to communicate boundaries, how to communicate when you're upset, right? Lots of times people think that their fists and their bodies are more powerful than their words, but that's not true. So I think again with online presence and media, that's creating like a blanket over how folks are seeing this, especially older people, because unfortunately, when it comes to technology and that kind of access.
It's so interesting because as you said technology, you said it did the matrix real quick. It tried to stall on us, but we're going to get ready to wrap up. I want to make sure that now, again, this is me, so let me get y'all off screen. I've shared Casamine's resources, and I've shared resources from one of our Your Healthy Java partners in the past. Also MGH. Some of the other links, you know, where I'm not going to share those. Y'all go to the Casa Myrna, y'all go to the city of Boston. There is a state of Massachusetts. I feel comfortable putting that one. But if you know me, you know what I'm talking. I'm messing Priscilla and May, but we got resources in the comments. They are hyperlinked. And so you know, safety is hugely important. I've referenced to, you know, if you are looking at resources and, you know, discover that you are unsafe real quick, they have quick buttons that you can exit. And again, do what you need to do to be safe for you. And if you have children, go, if you know of family members, SafeLink is a way that you can get some professional, I believe, professional advice to how to interact and support that person that is at a point of reaching out for help. And guess what? May, did you say a few minutes ago that it may take 10 attempts, maybe? If people...
Yeah, it had, like, from data, it takes at least 7.
7.
Average of 7.
Average. So that means it's as high as 15, 20, and as low as 1 or 2, you know, in cases. And so to the point I was making earlier, when they come for the first and they come for the second, and they come for the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth, and the 20th, to Winter's point, don't have pride so you're not able to perform, you know, and support. And thank both of you for being here today, because I think with, you know, again, going into the holidays and with a lot of, and you all support and have food banks and support the I'm going to say APACs. I don't know if that's still what they're called, but the the local, what are they called now? The local neighborhood centers. I'm old. We used to call them APACs.
The community centers?
Not the community centers, but like Claiborne Street, Warren Street, Fenway. What are they called?
Like our ABCD sites, they're sometimes too, they're like community centers because we
okay, you know,
it's a combo. It's used interchangeably. We can go.
I'm conditioned to Boston, so when I hear community centers, you know, I think BCYF. But however, we're all working together. But you know, it is imperative that we keep this information out there and let folks know, because as I was getting ready to say, food pantries at the different sites, you all, you know, may take Snap at them. Snap is potentially very interesting going into the holidays. And so it is important that also, as if you're dealing with this, you may get even frustrated with yourself. You got to give yourself grace. You know what I mean? And that's it. I really appreciate you all for being here with us today. And we got the resources in comments across Facebook, YouTube, and somewhere else. But thank you both. And we're going to make sure that we cut this up and get those high points out of information and let folks know where they can go back and watch the episode. And you all have challenged me that I'm going to do an after dark independently and bring some brothers into the room and have conversation. If one is, willing to talk about an experience where they were a victim, they're welcome. And then have some perspectives. I've had Carlos Enriquez in here a few times, and he shared, stories and things. And so we'll try to get that done. And you said that the major increase is really around Christmas and New Year. So that gives me a little, I don't have to rush to Thanksgiving, though all time and then soon, as much as possible is important. But I'll thank y'all for that challenge. Thank you both for being here today. And I'm going to go pay some bills and let you all go and do what it is that you do. Priscilla, thanks for coming out the other night to the whole ABCD team. Priscilla, we're in the process now of getting ready to have another cuffing season. In May, you are more than welcome to come and bring, all the information about this and everything that you're doing with the young people. But we're going to do another cuffing season. Don't let your, I don't know, I haven't ran this by Jamie yet, but we'll come up with something around the holidays and Christmas gifts. Don't walk away with a gift that you can't return. Oh, I like that one. All right. We're going to get ready. But let's also, again, there is an implication here also of that our victims and people that are dealing with this, sometimes their ability to reach out for health services is limited as well. So I just wanted to name that where you can be and where if they come to you and they need an emergent, get me to the hospital, or I got this much time to get to the doctor, where you can drop everything and help them. I just had that thought. Let me get y'all off of here because I'm way out there. Thank you both for being here today. And give everybody over at ABCD my best, and we'll get that date to you all for the event, because the first one was good. The last one, but this next one, third time's a charm. So thank you both for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, I hope you got some information today that as we're getting ready to go into this season, and I'm stuttering, so I looked at the latest news. SNAP is guaranteed through the end of October. We're in the state of Massachusetts. They will do what they can do, the governor with the budget, along with the other cuts. And then there's the whole piece of availability of things. And so, not being doom and gloom, but where we can, when things like this are happening, the more prepared we are, the less of the brunt if we're not prepared. I'll say this and let you all go. I was going to put a post up, and I a few years ago, I started joking about it. I remember Thanksgiving, I went to get elbows on like Wednesday night. None. I went to the bodegas and the local stores. No elbows. I settled and made my mac and cheese with some ziti. Now, for me, cooking, the holidays, if you all have followed me way before Java, I've been known to make up to 13 dishes. Like, the holiday cooking for me is cathartic. And I got to have elbows. My point here is, with all that's going on, with where you can, when there are sales now and they got all the sweet potato, I say mush, but the puree, the Jiffy, the bags of stuffing, the Bell seasoning, the non-perishable things that you can get here and there that are on sale now, get them. They do perish some 2 years from now. Your elbows, your evaporated milk, your sugar, your brown sugar, your vanilla, your cinnamon. Every now and then, start picking those things up. 1, you're not rushing to go shopping at the last minute. 2, they're having sales. 3, it's not as much. They talked about mental health, domestic violence, but we know, and it's I think Aisha named it, the relationship between our mental health and money. Getting a little bit, spending a little extra 10, 15 in the next few weeks until, start getting ready to get the turkey and the ham. That's a little bit different. You're not doing this big bulk of $300-$400 all at one time and have that stress. Will the amount maybe be the same little by little? I don't know. But just consider, right? Just a little extra sprinkle of sugar in your Java this morning. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to hold it for 2 more minutes so Union Capital members can get 90 minutes as it's 10:59. We will not be here tomorrow morning. I'm leaving town for a day. And I am going to experience my palate is going to experience some world class across the diaspora chefery. I've been invited to get an exclusive with a couple of well-known Black chefs. And me and Newt are out of here tomorrow morning for the day. And so we won't be here tomorrow morning. I probably will play a video, and the one I'm thinking about is the one with WGBH, where we did that a few weeks ago. Okay. Our next date for WGBH is November, and it's 11. Let it get to 11:01. In Union Capital, you will get your minutes. I got a text about my hat. The date for the next WGBH. See, this is why I don't look at my phone during the show. The next date for WGBH is November 6th. A couple of dates to also keep in mind. October 25th, this Saturday, is the last day to register to vote. The next election is on November 4th, right? So, all right, everyone, excuse me, have a great day, and we will see you on Thursday morning. Good morning, Coach Law, our guest from yesterday. Thank you so much for your contribution yesterday and reminding us to bet on self. Thank all of you that were in the cafe today, and please share that information that we talked about today. Be very sensitive to, where folks are in the situation. So we'll, again, we're out of here tomorrow, and we'll see you on Thursday at 10 a.m. All right. Have a great day, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you on Thursday morning. Okay. I got a feeling I'm forgetting something. Oh, well, we'll talk about it Thursday. All right. Thank you, everyone. Peace.